All right, welcome to the regular meeting of the Oregon City Urban Renewal Commission for January 18, 2012. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Neely?
Here.
Commissioner Roth? Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Yates?
Here.
Commissioner Peterson?
Here.
Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Commissioner Mumm? Here. Commissioner Edgar?
Here.
Chair Walters?
Here. Do we have any citizen comments this evening? Okay.
For a later item.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Yes, if we have an agenda item, then we'll listen to the citizen comments at that time. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so move to item 3, adoption of the agenda. Any objections?
On the consent agenda, I would like to see the discussion about the condemnation stuff on, I want to see it pulled off the consent agenda.
There she is. Talk about getting her.
Any discussion?
No, that's fine.
That's fine.
Sounds good?
Yeah.
Okay, we'd like to move the, I think we have consensus to move the, this would be item, beg your pardon, I believe
A.
it's,
Item 5A.
is it 5A? Thank you. Thank you, yes. 5A, we'd like to move that into general business. I guess that would be, anybody have a preference on order? Can we take it as 4E?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other suggested changes? Okay, moving on to agenda item 4A, election of the chair and vice chair for 2012. Nancy, aye.
Yes, according to our bylaws, the Urban Renewal Commission needs to elect at its first meeting of the year a chair and vice chair for 2012. I recommend that the current chair ask for nominations from the floor, and then commissioners can second the nomination. Then the city recorder can call the names of each commissioner, and that commissioner can state the name of their choice for chair, and I'll write that down, and then we will process that for a final vote for those people.
Great. Is that clear to everybody?
Yep.
Okay. So nominations from the floor?
I nominate Brian Shaw as chair.
Second.
Any other nominations?
For vice chair, Graham Peterson.
Excuse me,
We have to stay
just
with one objective.
just chair first.
Okay.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay.
Commissioner Edgar? You'll just need to say yes or no, and then we'll have the vote at that point.
Yes.
Commissioner Mumm?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Roth?
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes.
Yes. Lucky dog. Maybe.
Commissioner
What's the pay?
Smith?
I can't remember.
Commissioner Yates?
We're going to double your pay.
And Chair Walters?
Yes. Passes unanimously.
That's correct.
Okay. And I believe the vice chair would need to be somebody from the city commission.
Is that not
No.
That's not required.
It's recommended.
I don't think it has to be, but it could be.
In our case, both of our current ones are not. You're
Oh, that's
chair.
true.
and-
That's true. Yeah.
So now I can nominate Graham Peterson as vice chair?
Wait, can I clarify, do we have the bylaws that we can look at that before we go ahead?
Yes.
They're on the dais.
Second attachment.
This one? Okay, thanks.
Was that second?
No.
I'll second. Did you got the nomination down, or did we want to clarify?
We were clarifying, I don't see it in the bylaws that one has to be one or the other.
Right.
Yeah. And with that clarification, I'll second.
I nominate Paul Edgar.
Oh, that's. I'll second.
Do we have a second for Grant Peterson? I missed that
Yeah,
one.
I second
Yeah.
it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other nominations? Okay.
I'll call your name, and if you would say your choice. Commissioner Edgar, and then the choices for Vice Chair would be either Graham Peterson or Paul Edgar.
Paul Edgar.
Commissioner Mum,
Graham Peterson.
Commissioner Neely,
Graham Peterson.
Commissioner Peterson,
Graham Peterson.
Commissioner Roth,
Paul Edgar.
Commissioner Shaw,
Greg Peterson.
Commissioner Smith,
Edgar.
Commissioner Yates, and Chair Walters.
Edgar.
Okay.
So it's Paul Edgar, 5-4.
That's correct. Commissioner Edgar.
Do we play musical chairs now?
Oh, no.
Actually, yes.
Actually,
Yeah,
yes.
your hand-
Why don't you just move the gavel over and nobody has to move chairs? Just move the gavel over, then nobody moves chairs.
Then you don't need to. That would be fine.
Thank you.
For tonight, at least.
All right, well, first of all, I'd like to thank Nancy Walters for her chairmanship of the list last year.
Thank you.
And very good job, so.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And I'd like to say welcome to all of my fellow associates up here and audience members. So we can move on to item number 4B, Oregon City Metro Enhancement Grant for 922 Main, and that would be Eric Underwood.
Good evening, Commissioners. I submitted a proposal here for 922 Main Street after reviewing a Metro Enhancement Grant that was applied for in May of last year. The project associated with the grant includes a landscaping enhancement project at 10th and Main, and it includes some plantings of trees, creation of planter boxes, pedestrian access, some shrubbery, for the purposes of visually enhancing downtown and showing some things that are occurring downtown. However, I feel that since this grant was reviewed by the Oregon City Metro Enhancement Grant Committee, I think some goals have changed, some things have changed. I looked at it as a good project with good intentions. However, I believe one of the Commission's focus is aggressively marketing this site along with the 12th and Main site, and I believe a project such as this would not be conducive to that marketing effort. Typically, in my experience, a good way to market a site is to make it as shovel-ready as possible, for it to be clear, and to display to the potential developer that not a lot has to be done to get it ready to get developed. I believe, although the plantings and the amenities that this project would provide would be nice, I believe it would act also as a deterrent to development in the site. So therefore, I'm recommending that the Commission not move forward with this grant. And so I've listed some reasons in the staff report. I don't know if you want me to go over some of those reasons that I've pointed out to the Commission.
Okay. Is everybody okay with the criteria we have here in front of us, or would you like Mr. Underwood to state these?
Benefit of the public, it would help.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
I'd be happy to do that. So I've kind of labeled these as obstacles to marketing and developing the site. Some of the ones that I've seen, or that I see, is reduced awareness of site availability, developers thinking that the site may not be available, a reduction in shovel-ready status, which I just explained. I think more time will be required for site preparation or clearing prior to development. There will be additional costs for site preparation, which could ultimately affect land purchase negotiations. Tree removal may be controversial as the trees mature. People get used to the trees, and a year or two down the road as they grow, people may have an issue with cutting the trees down. I believe it would require needing time to eliminate the provision of pedestrian access. Again, that's an amenity that I think folks would get used to, is having access to the site. And then to take that away, I think may be controversial later. Lack of irrigation at the site and a maintenance plan could cause the site to become unsightly. Maintenance costs related to this site would increase, upkeep, weeding, that sort of thing. And economic development is currently expending funds out of the urban renewal funds to aggressively market this site, and I think it's counterproductive to do that and to allow this project.
Well, especially if we're going to sell the place.
Has there been any activity towards that?
There's been some, only through the city and the Main Street Oregon City organization with some 3D modeling. As far as activity from private developers, I haven't experienced any since I've been here in my short tenure.
Mm-hmm. There were some renditions done of of a building for that, and I didn't know if that got any further than that. Is that what we're actually showing prospective buyers?
That's the 3D modeling, and
Okay.
I think where we left off on that was actually creating an RFP or an expressive interest document to send out to developers. So.
Okay. All right. Mayor Neely.
Commissioner Neely.
Commissioner Neely.
I believe that, as I recall, the proposal was put forth by the Main Street group, and I assume, because I see they're here, maybe it'd be a good idea to bring them forward and see whether they're particularly upset about it or whether they agree with it. I'm sure you know that answer, but I think we've got to hear it too.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess if it's okay with the commission, we'll ask these folks to come
Yeah.
forward here.
Good job.
Hi, Lloyd Purdy, downtown director of the downtown program. Main Street is the joint applicant with Earth Crusaders. We're simply the fiscal agent. So there's a limited role I play, but if you want other questions I can't answer, potentially our partner, Jerry Herman, could.
Right.
But I'm happy to answer any questions you have right now.
Well, I guess it's the issues, if we're pulling back a grant, to hear from you and perhaps Earth Crusaders as well, from my standpoint.
That'd be great. Jerry Herman.
Well, we are happy to serve the city any way we can. Regarding trees, I thought we were going to use polymer-based trees there that you could grind up and make into fuel. I'm just kidding. It's a joke.
I knew that was a joke.
I understand.
Where we're going with this.
Understand.
I've been chairman for 5 minutes, Jerry.
We made every effort to design the site based on Lloyd's desire to be absolutely low maintenance. I want you to know that. But, and the choice of plant material was drought resistant, things like that. And this has been a real challenge, I think, for Lloyd and I anyway, to talk about a blighted area, okay? It's a parking lot, okay? I've done parking lots in my life before, but I don't like to do parking lots. It's nice to have something to begin with that's a little bit natural, okay? So the intention was everything would be done there in a natural-looking way, but be portable, so to speak, that could be removed. Now, I'm Metro Economic Development Director here, and I'm very pleased with meeting him. And long and short of it is, we don't want to impede any efforts that you might have. Certainly, we spent a lot of time mobilizing to do this, but if there's some way we can do something else for the city, we would like to do that. I'm kind of at a quandary, but I'm also understanding your direction in wanting to market those parking lots. And this is not something that is going to be a do or die kind of thing for us. We're working in Gladstone on projects in Westland for Lake Oswego too. So with youth, I mean, the things I do always involve youth, and that was the intention also. We would mobilize youth to do all this work. So if there's a way we can help in some other capacity, we'd be happy to do that. I had a wonderful relationship getting to know Lloyd really well, really well. I know things about him that he wasn't willing to tell me.
That's great.
And it's been a good relationship, and I would point out that in 2007, there was over 100 people that worked with Lloyd and myself to clean up the downtown. So we're committed to continue to help the city any way we can, and if it's not appropriate, this project at that site, which it sounds like it isn't because of your immediate marketing needs, we're happy to forego this and try to work in some other way.
Thank you, Jerry.
Great. Thanks, Jerry. Thank you, Lloyd.
Can I ask a question to Jerry? Yes, sir. I read the application from Metro thing. You applied for it as a temporary measure, the way the application read. What was your thinking in terms of the design? How many years were you planning on? Did you have a thought in mind in terms of how to make this easy to remove?
Well, the basalt planters were simply stacked and maybe tack mortared to stabilize them very low. And as far as the plant material goes, I was using a larger plant material that would immediately look good upon placement. But again, if the need is to keep it really clean and open for other prospective buyers to not be impeded, then that's a decision that I believe you're faced with. The landscape was designed to be temporary.
And what's your estimate would be the cost to remove the stuff that you're planning on installing? Do you have any idea?
Well, it would cost totally of almost $10,000 to put it in because of the work, and it would probably cost half of that with normal contractors to remove it. So I think that would be a safe estimate. The rock was coming from your city sources to save money and keep the grant within the guidelines of how much money could be approved at that time, last May. So the rock would be available again for reuse.
And what's the estimated value of the property to be marketed? Do you have an idea what the
I think the last estimate I checked was about 119.5. 120.
Okay, so we're talking about a $5,000 incremental cost to remove the stuff that you're putting in. And do we have any nibbles at all on it at all? You're aware?
Not yet, but
How long is it going to take it? Available
I don't have that history. I don't know.
But
It hasn't been aggressively marketed,
It hasn't been marketed.
and
is
I'm
the
currently
issue.
putting together a plan right now to do that.
Yeah.
Was that the change that you referred to earlier? Nancy said she thought it was a good idea.
Yes. So I think there's a more aggressive stance on marketing that property now that it seems like the city's focusing more on economic development and wanting to get those properties developed.
I think I know where Phil's headed with this. Is it more?
It's
I know.
kind of troubles me because we've got the city saying, "Yeah, let's do it." You know,
Yeah.
Jerry puts a lot of time into it, uncompensated. Gets an $11,000 grant. It's not a huge amount of money. It's an eyesore. It's not going to get sold right away, probably. You know, if history is the judge. I mean, I don't know. It's
And so the question is it more marketable as more of a fixed up little piece of property with little amenities to it than it is right now?
Right now, it's ugly.
right now it's ugly. And it may reduce its market.
Very
but
ugly.
not by
And
much.
it's detractingly ugly.
So, applying Jerry's landscaping plan to that, what do you think happens?
It would definitely make it look more inviting than it does now. Right now, it's ugly.
Okay. It is, that's correct. Okay.
Chairman Shaw.
Yes.
One thing, and we kind of talked all around the edges of this, and this isn't for this commission to make. I mean, this commission is involved in this because it's the urban renewal property, so you have to agree to have it done there. But one of the other concerns is that I had was to install this there and make it look pretty temporarily, and then remove it. That grant money is being spent there too on something that won't last. That won't by right up front, we know it's not going to be a permanent feature that the community would benefit for many years. So even the grant itself, to me, I wonder if that's the best expenditure for the money when we know we're going to lose that
So wasn't that the decision that was made by the Metro Enhancement Grant Committee? Because they were told it.
Apparently, they did make that decision, that they thought it was a good use of it, but maybe they didn't realize how quickly we were going to be trying to market the property. I don't know. I haven't talked to the committee. I wasn't at the meeting when they made the decision, but
Commissioners.
Mr. Mum.
Well, Rocky was on the dais next.
Oh, here
What is it called? The computer?
I don't know the list.
Rocky,
I almost said listserv, sorry.
Rocky, it's a smartphone. I don't know anything about it. Come on now.
Not only do you have to do that, but you have to raise your hand too, Ron.
Well, I was doing my finger.
All right, sorry.
So I mean, I see both ways on this discussion, but I guess my point would be there's no shortage of eyesores around the city.
You're correct.
Including city-owned eyesores. So I would like to see, Jerry or Lloyd, if it's downtown, or just Jerry, work with staff to try to figure out another site to do a project very similar, and then have Jerry come back to Metro Enhancement and ask, and basically get Metro Enhancement's blessing to take this essential project to another location. I think
That'd be great.
we read
there's a
your
lot
mind and
of
already have the
places.
meeting set up.
There's a lot of projects that can be done in other places right
Yeah.
now.
That's a great point.
That'd be wonderful. We'd be happy.
So that would be my.
Mr. Edgar.
On this property, I was concerned.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, I was concerned about the parking revenue that's coming in off of it, and when I read through the piece, it appeared as if that we were trying to enter into a philosophy that said that everything that happens down there is going to be very temporary, and that we would even be giving people who have monthly contracts with us for parking at that site a couple free months of severance if we were to sell it or turn it. It also brought up to my mind that why aren't we bringing that revenue into the Urban Renewal Commission for the parking that's there? And I just thought that if we're going to be marketing it, we're going to be doing this, whatever it is, this is an Urban Renewal owned property. We should be realizing any asset value of it coming into the Urban Renewal Commission.
Mr. Edgar, if I may, that is my next report to talk about the parking.
Okay.
So,
Commissioner Neely.
We're not the granting entity on these funds, and I really think the request has to be made to the Metro Enhancement Committee. If there wasn't a problem on your part of waiting until that granting entity meets.
We're here to promote harmony in government.
Very good.
Thank you, Jerry.
Have you applied for the new city commission? And so my preference would be is the decision would be made by the Metro Enhancement Committee. That's my opinion. And at that time, if you got another project to substitute, I think that'd be great.
We're going to be looking for one with Mr. Herman.
So my opinion is we make no decision about it because we weren't the granting entity to begin with.
well, there is there's an item in the agreement that says that it will only be officially approved if it's approved by the Urban Renewal Commission. So it was approved by the grant committee, but in order for it to be entirely approved, it has to be approved by this board.
So if you take no action, we know
Then
what
are
to
we
do.
good?
We know what to do, yes.
Yes, we're good. Okay.
All right. No action.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, we're going to move on to item 4C. parking at 922 Main Street. Mr. Underwood.
So, the parking report basically deals with the same type of issues and having the site ready for development and having it being perceived as being ready for development. Also, with this report, there's also concern about environmental and doing future environmental testing, especially on the section of the property that is not paved. So that could mean more extensive cleanup when a developer does decide to develop that property, which could also deter or could affect land purchase price negotiations for that cleanup. And environmental studies will happen too. So in an effort to, again, aggressively market the property, I believe it needs to be vacant and needs to show the developers need to perceive that as being ready to go, basically. So that's my report. Again, I can go through the reasoning that I've listed in my report if the commission desires that level of detail. But they're pretty close to the same as the project, the enhancement project.
You're suggesting no parking.
I'm suggesting no parking.
Okay.
I have talked with parking enforcement here with the city. They have proposed alternative parking areas. It would be for these folks that are permitted to park there, they would receive 2 months free permitted parking in another area until they could find another space to park.
Do we know how many are parking there now?
We currently issue 16 permits
Okay.
with capacity of 23. That includes both the gravel area and the paved lot at the top.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any discussion here? We have Mr. Yates, Commissioner Yates.
How long has it been used as a parking lot?
For quite a while. Again, I don't think several years.
The environmental concerns, which are real, of course, whenever you sell a piece of dirt, it's been dirt anywhere. But what's the risk of an incremental environmental problem while you're marking? Why do we have to lose the revenue while you're marking it? It doesn't really. You put a sign up, I don't think you lose the ability to let people know it's available if you've got it listed with somehow. I don't really get the environmental issue since it's been already used as you're going to have to get the level 1 probably as a condition of sale anyway. Do you really think it's going to substantially increase the environmental risk of a bad environmental report?
I think it could, and I think developers could perceive it as a risk if we continue to park there. That's continued contamination of the site with the oil and the gasoline that's dripping on that site. The problem is the gravel area. The paved lot is not that much of a concern, but again, the overall.
What's the percentage of paved and gravel?
I would say it's probably 80-20.
80 paved?
80 unpaved.
80 unpaved?
Yes. And you do have the runoff. There's no drainage or stormwater system out there.
Well, let's say it's already contaminated, which is likely, because it's been parked for years with the gravel. So you're going to have this cost. That doesn't compute to me that you're really impacting the sales value of it by utilizing it in the parking lot, and you are losing $12,000 a year in revenue. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Commissioner Neely.
I mean, the perception that might exist is people seeing cars, potential buyers seeing cars parked there, whereas if they're not parked there, they may not know the risk. But I don't know that.
Still same.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Another issue was these 16 vehicles going to park.
You said they had arrangements.
Well, that's what I'm worried about. Seems like we have a little parking thing down there. So, all right, Commissioner Edgar.
I really don't think that we have a need to shut it completely down at this time from being used as parking until we've got a good business plan or something coming along. I go along with what Phil suggested there, that there's some degree of contamination there that's already there, and we're not going to be adding that much more, and it's been effectively been marketed or available to be sold or to do something with it for forever and ever, and nothing's happened. And so for us to all of a sudden say, oh, let's just hold our breath, because now something's going to change, I don't know is smart. I think that if that was $12,000 worth of revenue coming into the Urban Renewal Commission at this time, with all of our debt load, I'd like to see it be used as a parking lot and redeveloped into a parking structure, but that's part of a discussion that we're going to be entering into and talking about that area of Main Street and north in this next month.
Okay.
And but we haven't even got to that plan yet.
Mr. Chair, if I could just clarify something really quick. The revenue that's coming in from that lot is not coming to the Urban Renewal Commission.
It should.
It should.
Right, but right now the way it's set up, it goes through the general fund and it's used for enforcement and maintenance. Code enforcement.
I'm sorry, Nancy, where does it go?
It goes to the parking fund.
Yeah.
The parking fund.
It's not part of the,
Okay.
it's used solely for managing parking and sponsoring things for the downtown. That's the way the parking fund is.
Commissioner Walters.
Thank you. I'm curious, when is the marketing plan going to scheduled to be ready, or when are you going to really start doing this? And also, I'm curious what Commissioner Peterson's thoughts are on the impact of having cars parked there.
So, my thoughts are, if they see cars and if that's a detractor, that we're going to eliminate those people right off the bat. I mean, they're going to, in their due diligence process, they're going to discover that anyways. If the goal was to remove the cars, pull all the dirt back, and clean the site right now, prior to having somebody at the table, maybe that would be an argument, but I don't know if we want to expend that kind of money day one to do it.
Of clearing the site?
Of clearing it and pulling out the dirt. And we can do some of the tests. We can see what's going on right now so we know. So we know that information. A phase one, I mean, we're probably going to trigger a phase two just because it's almost a given that it's going to trigger a phase two. But yeah, I mean, my thought is we've got this revenue. I'd like to see us almost try to maximize the parking revenue coming off of that. It'll eliminate some of our parking issues down there. It'll take a little strain off, but I think you can still market it pretty effectively.
One of my favorite songs.
Oh, hello.
Mr. Chair, I want to also mention that if I were commissioners right now, I'd be going, why they're talking about this now? What's triggering the besides just the idea that we want to aggressively market it? Recently, it was brought to our attention that it's a non-conforming use to use it as a parking lot. So that's another issue that, in my view, when you're trying to market property, you want to a potential customer, you don't want to be telling them this is a non-conforming use that we're engaged in. We want to, I think, show as much compliance ourselves with what's happening on the site so we can expect others to do the same.
Non-conforming use for the zone that it is?
Right.
Didn't it exist prior to the zone being laid down? Hasn't it been parking forever?
It's not up to parking standards.
There used to be a building there.
It's been,
Tony has the-
it didn't
you want the
comply with the
background,
previous
Scott.
zone either.
Yeah.
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 It was actually started as a temporary lot
Yeah.
years
Well,
and years ago, and it's
Used to be a newspaper
it was a
building.
building at one time.
I was just going to echo what Ms. Crushauer said, that it probably would have been it's probably been 10 years, if not a little bit more than that, when it was started as a temporary lot. But as we've been looking into parking lots downtown, we've been going through and trying to find the land use history on those, and it never went through the land use process to become a freestanding parking lot. So that's where the non-conformity. It never went through the land use process, the conditional use permit, to be a surface parking lot in downtown. So that's the outstanding issue that started this conversation.
Okay.
How was it identified in our downtown parking plan?
Yeah, I've lost control already here. Okay. I want to ask Commissioner Walters if this answered her question.
Oh, I just wanted to know what your timing is.
Well, you should see the first effects of the plan taking place by the end of this month. I'm having signs made. It's part of a campaign that I'm using for these two lots called the Land of Opportunity. So signs will be made, nice signs, not your typical real estate signs, but nice signs.
No offense.
I'm talking
We're going to throw
industrial.
you under the
But it's going to have some design element to them. They're going to be framed, and they're going to look pretty nice. It's going to have a QR code on these signs, so it's going to direct anyone with a smartphone to the economic development page on our website that gives them more information about the economic development programs and other available properties in the area. We're also going to use this, along with the 3D modeling that was developed earlier, we're going to implement it with earned media. We're going to try to get articles, not ads, but articles in the Daily Journal of Commerce that targets developers directly. And then it's going to be part of our tours that we give to developers downtown, too. And we're working on other ideas, but right now that's what we have in place, and that's what we're going to be starting here at the end of the month.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Commissioner Smith.
Might have already spoken.
Think. You already speak?
No. Oh, no.
Okay.
Gosh, I don't know which direction to go here. So my first comment was going to be I agreed with pretty much everything everyone said until found out it's not supposed to be a parking lot.
Technicality.
On a future agenda topic, I would like to see us look at every property that Urban Renewal owns and make sure it's getting the rent.
Yes.
Every property the city owns and make sure it's getting the rent.
Absolutely.
That has to be fixed because we keep getting these surprises. Secondly, everything on our city property and everything on our Urban Renewal property should be following the code. This is simple. And we're finding these every single day, typically ones that are paralleled with issues that we're telling the citizens they can't do this. It's twice this week. It's horribly embarrassing, and I know that a lot of staff that's here weren't here. Some of you were. These have to be fixed.
Yeah.
That's why they're bringing them.
So we got to do it soon because it's getting old.
Commissioner Neely.
Yeah, I just I agree with Rocky Smith. The argument.
Thank you.
If we're going to do away with the parking, then we wouldn't have the revenue going into code enforcement anyway, and so we might as well keep the parking, have it go to the Urban Renewal Commission. I mean, it is Urban Renewal Commission property, and it should come this way, and so I guess that would be a second item that we could bring forward.
Yeah.
But I guess the arguments I don't think to me are that strong. Seeing vacant property and cars parked in it, I don't think would have that much effect on a developer when they saw the land wasn't developed anyway. And so I don't think I think it should go ahead and have some income derived, but since it's urban renewal, as Urban Renewal Agency owned property, that revenue should come into the Urban Renewal Agency.
Okay.
Even if it's not,
Wait,
even if it's not okay to have a parking lot there?
Well, that's the question. There's two pieces
Yeah.
of questions, actually, that are there.
We didn't do a land use application to put the parking lot in,
Yeah.
and we should have.
Right.
When this was converted to a temporary use, I don't have the exact date. It was like 12 years ago or so.
Right, I think it was shortly after it was purchased, and it was not something that staff recommended. It was an urban renewal decision at the time, let's use it as a temporary parking lot, and that was it. So there wasn't ever any big process
there-
or...
Did it come to the Urban Renewal Commission? I'm
was-
not sure it
yeah.
did, but it may have been discussed at the City Commission, but I don't know if it came to the...
And was the Urban Renewal Commission at the time?
The City Commission.
Oh, it was. And did they? I mean, were they aware that the money was going? I guess it was because it was the City Commission, so it was going to the city. Okay.
I don't know. You had to check
One
on the
quick,
timeline.
can I ask one quick follow-up question about the code?
Commissioner Mum, yes. Well, wait a minute.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, hang on. There you go. Now, we're going to ask Mr. Tom O'Brien.
I've been demoted?
Tom, we're going to double your pay. Thank you very much. Double that pay.
Triple it.
We do have an empty chair over here, Mr. O'Brien, so, you know.
There is an application process that you can do.
There are several things that I would like to comment on. Number one, I would like to see revenue coming into the city as well. But I also recognize that until probably 10 months ago, when the plans were brought forth for 10th and Main and 12th and Main, I was not personally aware that these lots were owned by the city. I thought they were in private hands, just lying vacant, earning no money for anyone. The fact that the city is getting some revenue from it is important. But I think it's even more important if the value of the land, the assessed value, is $120,000. It would take us over 10 years in parking revenues to equal that. We've spent good money to hire a professional in terms of economic development manager. I think we need to be listening to what this man brings to us and understanding that if he's saying in order to sell the property, and we have a plethora of properties held by the city or the Urban Renewal Commission. I don't remember the number, but I know Commissioner Edgar knows the numbers. There is just way too much property owned by Oregon City, and the taxpayers are getting nothing out of it. So I would like to see us sell some of this property as quickly as we can, and that's why we hired an expert to help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Commissioner Roth.
Thank you. Mine's a real short and sweet.
Okay.
Tony, I believe. Is there a environmental concern regarding that piece of property in addition to parking, like from when the Enterprise Courier was there?
I don't have that information with me. I don't know if we did any type of analysis when we bought it.
I don't remember.
We did something. I don't have that offhand. We didn't. I didn't look into it that much.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Mum.
Thank you. My question is because the code came along and we're no longer supposed to be having, or it didn't really go through the process of being a parking lot. So now to continue to have it in a parking lot situation, we have to follow the code and fill out the application and all that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so there's no grandfathering in at this point, correct?
It was never legally established to be grandfathered.
And then my other question is the money goes to the parking code, or and why? Do you know why that might have happened? Why didn't it
I don't have an answer for that.
And is there other parking monies that go into the parking line item?
No.
No, just that one?
Parking goes into parking. That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Excuse me, Commissioner Mum, I'm sorry, Chair. There is a transfer out of the B&B leasing that goes into the code enforcement portion of the parking budget. So the parking budget has two sections. One is parking, one's code enforcement. And so I just wanted to make sure I clarified that. So there is a small amount that gets transferred from our garbage franchise to help with code enforcement.
Thank you.
All right, we have Mr. Dan Halliday to speak here. Is that what the ties? That's what the tie's for, Dan. Okay.
Actually, I went to court and got custody of my son today, so that's a
cool.
positive. So. One, I find myself in the rather strange situation of agreeing with Mr. O'Brien on occasion. I think it's real important that you understand that we went through this big process to go find a guy who knows what he's doing in economic development. And then the first couple things that he brings, he's getting picked apart. And I want to say, if I quit working on my own car because I found out it cost me more to do it myself than if I took it to a mechanic who knew what he was doing. Sometimes 2 or 3 times as much by the time I bought all the wrong parts and spent all my own time. So my suggestion is that maybe you guys take 4 or 5 months and just listen to what the guy has to say and do some of the things that he says to do, and then see if it works out or not. And then if it's not working out, then you have a chance to have a discussion. But, Eric's got a proven track record from where he comes from. I know some of the folks over there. They have nothing but good things to say about him. Apparently all you guys liked him. And so, it's inconceivable to me that we're having this discussion about something as trivial as $12,000 a year in parking revenue. And then I have a question for Mr. Conkle, and that is if it was me as Joe Citizen and you discovered I was using that lot illegally, what would you do? You'd shut me down today.
We would work with you to bring
Good
as we do everyone else.
Good customer service. Thank you, Mr. Conkle.
And I'm going to throw one more thing on top of this, because I'm not trying to defend what the Urban Renewal Commission did 12 years ago. But if you wanted to bring this into compliance, that parking lot, the pervious surface, the unpaved condition of it, that can't be the way it is. So to get the land use approval, we have to be in compliance with our own code.
Yes.
We don't allow parking lots with gravel.
Right.
So we're not setting a good example by doing that.
You're correct.
The parking lot at 13th and Main complies with our code. And it's got landscaping, buffers, you name it, all kinds of stuff. Stormwater management.
So you would spend a lot more than the 12. The point I'm making is we ought to pursue this sale opportunity because if we get it in compliance, we're going to spend quite a bit of money, more than we're losing in revenue, to get it in compliance. So if that makes you feel any better.
I move to go ahead and not permit that land to be used for parking.
Second.
Question? Hearing none.
Commissioner Mum?
Aye.
Commissioner Roth?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Yates?
No.
Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Commissioner Walters?
Yes.
Commissioner Edgar?
Yes.
And Chair Shaw.
No.
Okay, motion passes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-2.
So this was just kind of a challenge for Mr. Underwood.
That's right. I'm sure I got many more to come.
If you think this is a challenge, wait till you come to the city.
Looking forward to it.
That's right.
Okay. We are going to move to 4D, the Clackamas Landscape Supply Lease Renewal. And Mr. Underwood again.
And I'm going to start this one by saying this is going to be really straightforward.
Well, as soon as you say that, you know it.
Yeah, knock on wood. So, this is a lease renewal for Clackamas Landscape Supply. I believe it's the first time it's been brought to the commission, but it's done every 3 years. It's the recent lease expired December 31st of 11. And in order to continue operation out there, the Urban Renewal Commission needs to approve a new lease. So that's basically what this is. I think you have the lease as an attachment to this report. The base monthly lease for the 2012-13 calendar year is going to be $3,003.38, with an annual 2.5% increase from the base for each year, each subsequent years during the three-year lease period. The Urban Renewal Commission will be paid the first day of each month until the lease term is expired, upon which time the new lease will be negotiated. So if the lease is renewed, then the new lease period will be 2012 to 2014.
Thank you. Commissioner Edgar, please.
Thank you. This property has immense value. I perceive value primarily because of its not only its size but its visibility. It has Home Depot right across the street. The cost of the lease, the people that there, I've met them and talked with them, and they're good, very good people. But the price of $3,003 per month is really very low in relationship to the true market value of that. And I've asked for some comps out there as to what property like this, with that visibility, with that access, the car count that goes in front of it, it's a nice deal. And if I was them, I would want that deal any day, any time. But for us, that is really kind of a linchpin type piece of property, and if we start talking about 10th and Main as something that should be put up onto the block that could really help us get going and start some redevelopment and create some revenue, this is a property that really has that potential, even in spades. It is significantly more valuable, significantly, in fact, an extension of its market value probably puts it at $1.58 million based upon what it's worth, just because of its size and because there's also contiguous property that could be added to it to create a greater mass that could up the total square footage available by another third. It has limited environmental problems. Yes, it's in the floodplain. But if we take historically, and Graham Peterson could probably confirm this, that if I was I owned this property, I own commercial property like this, I'm being told by my real estate people that it's worth I should be getting 10% of its asset value in rental on it, and I take 10% divided by 12, and that would normally come up with, in a triple net world, would come up with what my monthly would be. So I did an extension like this, and I said, okay, if it's worth $1.5 million, and instead of saying 10%, I cut it in half, I make it only 5%. Then the market value on that would, for annual rental income, should be $79,000 divided by 12 comes out to $6,585 a month. Is what property like that with that degree of visibility and that marketability. Now, also in this area, if we really want to maximize our investment and create activity and create new investment, maybe we should be looking at it having a 1-year lease instead of a 3-year lease, and we could have some renewals on it that would come in. Where, again, I don't want to see an empty piece of property. I want to see jobs in Oregon City. I want to see development in Oregon City. I want to see positive things happening. And I think this piece of property is one of our better assets owned by the Urban Renewal Commission that has great opportunity for us to really turn and do something positive with. And if I use that same logic that Mr. Underwood was talking to us about on 10th and Main,
using the same logic, why would we not want to have this presenting itself as the best possible real estate that we could put out onto the market that we could be doing something with? And I would love to see it in our marketing plan there too. Not something that we lock up and put away. This is great stuff that could really give us some real upticks in development and actually make the Rossman landfill and a lot of other properties along there more valuable.
I believe there used to be a termination clause in the lease. Is it still in there,
That's what I was
Eric?
looking for. Just,
I believe that we'd give them a certain amount of time and they would need to leave.
Can I comment?
Okay, Commissioner Neely?
Unless the current users of the property did a tremendous cleanup there, that was the site of the Stimson lumber mill.
Yes.
And I assume that all contaminants have not been removed from that area. I don't know what was required.
I believe that what's primarily under that site is wood waste. I believe most of the actual groundwater and soil contamination was over where they treated the wood, which is where the Amtrak depot now exists, which has been cleaned up and we're getting the no further action on.
But what I'm
So
saying,
it's really
is
mostly-
far from a shovel-ready spot for development.
It would have to be put on pile foundations
Yeah.
because it doesn't have.
And I guess I
soil.
look at it the other way. I think the driver of economic development will be whatever occurs on that landfill. I think once that happens, then all the properties around it will get exceedingly high value. I don't think the development of the Stimson property is going to trigger the landfill development. It's going to be just the opposite way around. And if this urban renewal agency can't really go forward on something like that, then I think we're not going to see any development there at all. But the huge acreage that's there, the area that's very, very visible from Highway 205 is the landfill. So what happens on the landfill is what's going to drive the value of the land around it, not the land around it driving the property value of the landfill. And in the meantime, did you find something?
Yes, and looking at the Section 12, there's payment to landlord and termination of the lease. I haven't found the exact section yet, but it looks like it's going to be under Section 12.
I know in the past the lessee was always willing to accept that clause if it got removed from this version of the lease. You might want to talk to them about including something should a great opportunity come up. I'm a little out of turn stating that, but I know that's been the case in the past.
My recollection of what happened in the interest of that property owner is that property owner lost land that was owned by Clackamas County when Clackamas County was considering moving all of its operations that's there next to Abernathy Creek out of the floodplain, which it did not do. So the property is still owned by Clackamas County, but they didn't move it, but they were told to leave. So that's why they located our site. It's probably a good location for them.
All right. Commissioner Roth.
Oh, I thought Betty was here. Well, I agree with Doug, except we don't have control of that landfill. We do have control of this piece of property, so we can't control the drivers on the landfill, and we have just gone through an extended example of working with that. So I think that we have to look at what we really do have control of and what we don't have control of.
Is there a keyboard?
No.
There's no virtual keyboard? You can't search?
Okay. I guess
Well, we do want to check the lease agreement. first.
Yeah, while it's
Okay.
doing that also, I just wondering if we do have an option of a one-year lease instead of a 3-year lease, so.
I would like to move to make that for it to be a one-year lease.
Okay.
I'd like to hear what the lease says.
That is.
I went back on.
Appears not to be there.
I haven't found that yet, but if I could make one point before the commission makes a decision. As far as business planning, business modeling, that's going to be very challenging for Clackamas Landscape Supply to do any of that within a one-year lease. That doesn't give them a lot of time for projections.
Do you have the lease?
Well, right now it's a 3-year lease.
Yeah. Commissioner Mo.
So, well, just one thought is to go to a 2-year lease. I don't know. But did you do a fair market value quote for the rent?
I have not. No.
Do you have quotes or comps?
What we've done is graduated it through the years. It started at a certain level, and we've increased it based on
Percentage?
Yeah.
I think it's typically been 2.5% increase each year from the base.
I think that was one of those sites where it is a very difficult site, and it was felt that this business would able to benefit a lot from being able to use that property, which is in the floodplain, and they're the kind of business that can be in the floodplain because they can get their office out. It's in a
Right.
trailer.
Look at 1612.
And so there was always seen as a win-win situation. So that's the path. That's the history behind that amount. No, we have increased it through the years. And they pay taxes on the site, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Neely.
I wish to yield to the owner, to the leaseor, and to have that person come up and speak,
Thank you.
which I believe he's now come up on the list.
Mr. Steve Pearson. Is that correct? Okay.
My name is Steve Pearson. I'm the owner of Clackamas Landscape Supply. I'm a little nervous. I'm not used to being in front of the panel like this, but I recognize a lot of faces, some customers. We moved in 1998, shortly after the 96 flood. We had a heck of a mess to clean up, not only from the flood, but the fact that this property was an old lumber mill. There were all different elevations, and there was a lot of steel that needed to be removed, and concrete abutments and stuff like that. And there was a lot of trees growing up. It wasn't a secured piece of property, so people were unloading trailers and garbage and all kinds of stuff on the property. We spent a few months there before we opened up just cleaning up the mess that was there. We spent a lot of money in securing the property so that people couldn't come in off of the street. After things get dark down there, if you don't have anything secured down there, it disappears or it gets damaged or vandalized. So we do pay our rent to the Urban Renewal Commission, just so we're clear on that. It is, and we are also paying the property taxes on the portion of the property that we're leasing. It is difficult to make financial decisions as a business owner when you're on a very short-term lease, as far as purchasing equipment or entering into agreements that require a contract and a length of time. And the other thing is, that is the lowest piece of property along Washington Street. So when it did flood in 1996, it was probably the deepest part of the water. It was up to the gutter lines on the old gas station across the street. So it was completely underwater. We were taking a big risk in being there and doing what we're doing. We have a mobile trailer that has axles under it, and we do have a plan to get our equipment and our office out of there as quick as possible. The financial impact would be pretty devastating if we had a repeat of the 96 flood. Whether we would survive that or not, I honestly could not tell you. I believe that we could and that we would be fine. And that's a big risk that we're taking, and I think that's a factor in the use of the property and the amount of money that we are paying. It's a big gamble, and it's this time of year we're watching the snowpack, we're watching the forecasts, and it takes a perfect storm, but the perfect storm has happened in the past, and on average I guess it's a 30-year event. I've heard 50-year on average, but there's no guarantees. And we've really enjoyed our time in Oregon City. We've tried to be active in participating and helping the community and the schools, local churches and stuff like that. And we would really like to continue to do business in Oregon City as long as we possibly could. But it's difficult on a 12-month lease.
Okay. Kind of stay put there. Commissioner Neely?
I'm glad he's staying put, because I had the question that if there was some kind of bailout provision get a year's notification, but we found somebody that was really interested in the property and was willing to wanted to develop it. That a year's notification or something of that nature built into the lease, would you object to it?
It would be difficult to locate a new piece of property and move our business. It would be a time, I think, where I'm at in that business where I would have to pick and choose parts of the business to take and relocate and just shut other parts down.
Thing is, we're going to run into this all the time. I mean,
yes,
you know,
and I understand.
we do want to develop that side, and if we do this on a 3-year basis continuously,
I thought the term of the contract was a 2-year with a 2-year renewal at the end, an option for a renewal.
This is drafted as a 3-year.
Is it drafted as
renewal,
3-year?
yes.
Okay.
So there is a termination clause that can be constituted in both between section 12.3.3 and 16.12. So with those two combined, that gives.
Do you want to read them out? I go locate it in the meantime, but is it that big?
Well, I think I've got some time, so. 12.3.3 says landlord shall have the option, in lieu of granting consent to the transfer, of terminating this lease and releasing tenant from its remaining obligations hereunder. The option granted to the landlord under this paragraph must be exercised within 30 days after landlord's receipt of all information concerning such proposed transfer, which tenant is required to provide pursuant to section 12.1. Section 16.12 is entitled Transfer of Landlord's Interest. In the event of any transfer or transfers of landlord's interest in the property, other than a transfer for security purposes only, landlord shall be automatically relieved of any and all obligations and liabilities on the part of landlord accruing from and after the date of such transfer, and tenant agrees to attorn to the transferee, who shall assume all landlord's obligations hereunder.
That still binds the landlord to the lease, though, I think, after reading it carefully.
So essentially, I think what that means is that if the Urban Renewal Commission finds a buyer and you want to transfer the property to a new buyer, you can do that. You're going to have to give the traditional lease term notice as a minimum. And you probably want to do more, frankly, to help the business relocate. So you've kind of got all the aces as far as transferring the property already. So.
Okay. Any further? Oh, Commissioner Yates.
I think
You got to feed him on the button.
I think Steve's business is a great business. I shop there all the time. I buy lots of rock there. But I think Commissioner Edgar brought up some good points in terms of the term, in terms of the value of the space and the terms of the lease, and termination provisions are kind of important. But I don't think we should be talking about them here with the other side, on the other side of the table, in an open meeting. It seems to me we ought to terminate this now, talk about it in our executive session, which is coming up, maybe just for a minute or two, and then resolve it in an executive session. That's where I think we ought to be. So I would make a motion to that effect. We just terminate this conversation for now and finish it up in an executive session, which will happen in about 10 minutes.
I second that.
All right. Move second. Question?
We can't make a decision in executive session, correct?
That's correct.
And I have one more question of the.
Oh, okay. Mr. Roth.
What would a 2-year lease look like in your timeline?
I would be much more comfortable with the 2-year versus. I thought it was a 2-year with an option
Right.
for 2-year renewals.
2 1-year renewals?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the way I read it, but maybe I don't have the most current copy.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor here. So,
Commissioner Mum?
No.
Commissioner Roth?
Abstain.
Commissioner Smith?
No.
Commissioner Yates?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Neely?
No?
Commissioner Walters?
No.
Commissioner Edgar?
Yes.
And Chair Shaw?
yes.
You have 4 yes, 4 no, 1 abstain.
It passed. Could I make a suggestion?
Commissioner Neely.
My suggestion is, before we go into executive session, rather than doing an executive session, I would think the best thing to do is perhaps have our economic development director and staff talk to the owner here, and since there may be something that's better for both of us, a two-year renewal, than our current 3-year and step-out clause that we have in there that might be beneficial to us both. Let them draft another agreement. We could look at that agreement if we want to in executive session before it's presented. Otherwise, we're probably going to take our executive session and try to negotiate things without anybody to negotiate with. That's my suggestion.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So bring it back then, subsequent meeting.
I have a little clarification here, too. It does say it's a 3-year lease with 2 1-year renewals.
Is it? Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
Thank you.
All right. That looks like we're going to move on to, I think we covered all of our, we got FAR E now, don't we?
Right.
Which is now the resolution number UR 1201, declaring the necessity of intent to appropriate real property, authorizing restitution of condemnation.
I hate to do this. Kristen Jones had got onto our list, or maybe she didn't, and that was, she never had a chance to speak. And even though we made sort of a decision, that if you still want to, I think you should be able to come up. Well, the decision was to put it off. But did you want to speak it?
No, she was under 5A.
Oh,
the resolution that's on the floor now.
Oh, excuse me. Pardon.
Okay, so Nancy, please.
All right. This is before the Urban Renewal Commission as a standard operating procedure in doing a public project where we are using federal dollars and where the public agency is needing to acquire easements or right-of-way. There's significant law that is written about public agencies acquiring right-of-way and properties. And we, on our Phase 2 McLaughlin Boulevard project, there is a need to get a temporary construction easement on the Oregon City Shopping Center side of the property so that we can rebuild that shopping center. When we're, no, we're not rebuilding. No, the sidewalk. You wish, right? No, the sidewalk. So essentially, we have the permanent right of way needed to do the improvements, but in order to replace the sidewalk, you need a little extra space to set your forms, to work, to finish the concrete, etc. So I was asked to bring a map of where the easement is. It's basically a 5-foot strip along the shopping center. I better keep one. Along the shopping center side of McLaughlin on the back side of their sidewalk, so in the parking lot. And this resolution is a technical step of the way in making sure we're complying with Oregon statutes, and all of this relates to the federal requirements. So a little background on the project is this project is part of the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Plan, which was completed in the early 2000s and I think adopted in about 2005 by the. Gosh, I made it. Well, I guess I didn't quite make it up.
Sure.
Is there enough there then, or maybe you could share?
Yeah, still on our shirt.
It's a pretty simple easement. It's just straight up and down 5 feet. Anyway, the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Plan was adopted by the city in 2005. Since then, we have completed Phase 1 of the plan, which is all of the improvements you see between 10th and 15th Street on McLaughlin Boulevard, including the Willamette Terrace, the streetscape, making it a boulevard, on-street parking, etc. And this project is Phase 2, which we competed with other projects throughout the metro region for federal funding as part of Metro's Regional Flexible Fund program, of which I think the region gets a very small amount, I think about $28 million every 2 years to spread throughout the entire region. And Oregon City successfully competed for $3.4 million of those funds several years ago. And then what happens is they approve the funds, and then you actually get programmed to construct or do the design several years later. So it's out there a few years. At the time we applied for the funding, the city committed to doing a local match using urban renewal funding, and for that reason, we've been carrying that amount in our urban renewal budget to make sure that it's showed, it's committed, there's no way to spend it on something else. And we are now just getting started. Well, you can always spend it on something else, but it's in the budget to show that there's a commitment to ODOT, Metro, and federal highways that we can meet our obligation for the local match. We are in the process of starting the design of that project right now, and in so doing, we have to let the shopping center know that we're going to be wanting to obtain this temporary construction easement, and before we can do any of that, we have to pass a resolution that states that, well, it states exactly what it says, that we're declaring the necessity and intent to appropriate real property and authorize institution of condemnation proceedings if necessary. You can always decide later whether or not if it went to condemnation. These rarely do. We've had a couple where we get headed in that direction, but usually you settle before you actually get to that. But the city, if at any point any of these easements, right-of-way acquisitions, start having trouble in the negotiating phases, and there are all these rules you have to follow just to send letters of I'm going to offer you this, and you have to have 45 days, and I can't even quote you all the rules associated with these processes. But this isn't saying we're condemning this property now. It's just saying it's really making it very public that the city is a public agency. It's in a position to acquire property for the public good, a roadway project, sidewalks, et cetera, and that there is a potential that this could go to condemnation, and that is authorized. And that's what is on your agenda tonight under the resolution. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Nancy.
I guess I wanted to just reiterate that if you start getting into negotiations, then it becomes executive session material. Those are not where we're at all on this today, because so far we've been working quite well with Oregon City Shopping Center. In fact, they have a redevelopment plan, and actually in their land use approval, there is a condition of approval that they work with us to take care of this 5-foot temporary construction easement. So we've had ongoing dialogue. I haven't with you, but I know the planning department has had a lot. So.
Okay, thanks. Christian Jones, please.
And I think I call you Kirsten or...
That's okay. People call me lots of things.
Oh.
But it's actually Kristen.
I did.
I get Christina, Kirsten, everything. So.
I got Jones right, though.
That's right. That's an easy one. Kind of like Smith. So I am here tonight on behalf of the owners of the Oregon City Shopping Center. I work for them, and as you have said, that we're doing our own redevelopment, which we're very excited about. And overall, we're very, very excited about this enhancement program. Just can't wait for it to happen. Feel like it's really going to complement what we're trying to do at the center, and just really clean up the look and the ambiance and all of that. So we're very excited you're doing this, and just can't wait for it to happen. Can't happen soon enough as far as I'm concerned. This kind of was a little alarming, I guess, just to read this. Hearing you helped me understand it better. But just hearing kind of for the first time the possible intent to acquire property and condemn it, I think it just kind of set some alarms, because those aren't words that we've ever talked to the city about before. So I really would love if there was a way we could postpone this so there could potentially be more of a process of involving the owner, and so we could completely understand the whole scope of it before there's a approval tonight to move forward on the resolution.
If we can move this forward, it would really help our project. We have a schedule we're trying to maintain. If we can't, that's the way it goes. We have to write them in these very general terms, and maybe any of the lawyers in this room can assist on this, but we do this the way our city attorney tells us to do it. And in your situation, there's the 5-foot easement, temporary construction easement. That's what we're going to be working with you on, and that's pretty much it. So there's no acquisition, not even permanent easements. It's just temporary construction easements.
Okay. That definitely sounds a lot better than acquiring real estate and condemning it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guess that's it then.
All right, let's just stand by a minute, Kristen, and we'll see if there's any questions here while we're running around. Any questions for Kristen?
Can I make
All right.
Can I make a comment to it?
I'm up next.
Oh, excuse me. Commissioner Ruff.
Okay. Well, I want to bring up two issues about this. One, I was really surprised to see this on the consent agenda. I don't think anything that has the word condemnation belongs on a consent agenda anywhere. It's just, like Kristen said, it's a surprise, and it just should not be there. It shouldn't be something that slips through. And we're talking about transparency in government. That's something I ran on in my candidacy. This is not transparency when you put something like this on a consent agenda. So it really surprised me and really angered me that it was there. We're not doing our best to be open and honest with the citizens when we do things like this. This is not putting it out in the public, because unless somebody is in this room reading that paper, they don't know what's on the consent agenda. Secondly, although I would like to see that work done, I have a hard time seeing that as blight.
Gosh.
There's a lot of other areas in this town that I can see as blight, but that strip of McLaughlin is in current economic conditions and the way that the rest of the town looks, I have a hard time with that being blight. So
I've taken a bunch of pictures, which I'm happy to submit if that's helpful.
I walk down there quite often.
Yeah, just so.
Okay. Commissioner Walters.
Thank you. The condemnation word was a real surprise to me too. I know we've had this project on the plan for a long time, and I've also been aware of it through Transportation Advisory Committee, and I do think it's I appreciate all of the work that has gone into this, and I know that your staff has done a lot of excellent work. But I agree with Kristen that the scope of it seems really broad, and I don't know if there's a way that we can maybe come back with a less generic scope so that it's more.
I think this is the way it has to read per the statutes. This is what and you do it this way, or you're not following the rules.
Is there a way that we can contain it so that it really addresses whatever the work is or whatever's being considered, so that it's not so open-ended?
I can find out. This is the way we've always done it in the past, so I'm sorry that I don't usually like to use that terminology, but this is the resolution that the City Commission and I believe the Urban Renewal Commission has used before. And so, as far as I know, it's because it's what's required. So, I don't know. I can say in my staff report that we don't anticipate any condemnation. We believe that this is the only property that we're going to need to be doing any sort of negotiating on or acquiring. It's a temporary construction easement. I mean, if that helps for the record.
Another thing that might have really been helpful is to have some kind of communication maybe beforehand, so we kind of knew that, I guess, maybe before this all got on the agenda.
Including with us.
I think we even have to do this before we can start talking to you guys, which is really bizarre. I mean, I agree, this language, I read the stuff we have to send in these letters, and it's like, wow, we're scaring the bejesus out of folks. But it is the way this Uniform Act is written and the way the Oregon laws are written.
Commissioner Smith?
Wasn't going to argue one way or another whether it's blighted, but I want to say that in terms of the urban renewal perspective, it's the gateway to our city on 99E. It's the gateway to one of our biggest projects, the Cove project, and that's why it's in here. I mean, that's why that's been in there this whole time, I think.
Yep.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yeah, just hearing Rocky, I'll second that as kind of my feelings as well. But I was reading into some of the things you were saying about the process on this, Nancy. It sounds like as you're going through, if there's a condemnation proceeding, or if that looks like the path, there is a process, that triggers a process, and then it would come back to this body.
That's correct.
So it's almost like we can get going and then if it triggers something more serious, there's a very, very transparent process.
Yes.
And notifications and
lots of
communication
notifications
back and forth.
and lots of communication if there's problems.
And we would know if Oregon City Shopping Center had concerns, we would hear those, and that would be all open, and we would know, and then we could make a judgment call at that point.
That's right.
Okay.
I mean, it's a very, very elaborate process. More bureaucracy than we would like sometimes, but it's to protect the property owner, from whom the property or the easement is being acquired.
Commissioner Edgar.
I want to second what Kathy Roth said. I think that we should never, ever have a situation like this ever come up where it appears on our agenda on a Friday for next Wednesday and it's on a consent agenda. We were not in the loop. You throw the word condemnation onto there, it's very alarming. It should not have happened that way. There should have been adequate communications, not only with the landlord or the people that is being affected, but with the whole Urban Renewal Commission, and it should be way out in advance. It should be at least a week or maybe even 2 weeks in advance when something like this is used. I'm not in disagreement with this. With, you might say, our need to make our city look good when people in a gateway area. I am really in disagreement, though, in the use of $1 million of urban renewal funding, where we have, in effect, over the years, treated the urban renewal fund like a slush fund to be used for so many different purposes. This particular use, I find it very difficult, and I hope somebody can help identify where this actual TIF, the tax increment, is going to be achieved, on what properties, physically identifying how we get our $1 million back, and short of us being able to identify this. Right now, I'm looking down. We take out $687,000 from the Oregon City School District in urban renewal funding that could be going to them if the district was terminated. And whenever we use the urban renewal fund like a slush fund, and we don't have increment coming back in, then it projects out the termination date on this $687,000 that's coming away from the school district and community college, the fire department, the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department, our own city. But if we don't generate TIF, we don't actually generate tax increment that pays back that $1 million. All we're doing is extending it out.
Yeah.
Part of that's true.
And so this is when we start entering into these things, all of a sudden we get to a point where we say it's too far down the road where it can't be challenged. And I'm concerned about this should be, to me, funded by the city, coming out of the city budget. Not if it doesn't generate TIF,
And if this is something that is really good and everybody thinks is very important, fine, let the city do it. But if we can't prove and show where we have tax increment coming back into the city or through the urban renewal district, then I don't think that we're being fiscally responsible sitting up here and doing this. So I'm concerned about that, but I would also say please never have a condemnation coming to us again without real adequate notice.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, can I address this? Because this is...
Yes.
Nancy, did you put this on the agenda under consent to purposefully hide this from the public or any of the urban renewal commissioners?
No.
You didn't do that. And I guess the point is, if you're at the staff level here, you're trying to figure out when do you use consent calendar, when don't you? And I don't think there was any bad faith here on the part of our staff to hide this. And my understanding of this is it's a housekeeping step that has to be taken before we could even start having a conversation with property owners. And
That's exactly
if
right.
I'm the Federal Highway Administration granting this money, I'm going to want that language at the top, because I can't tell you from experience how many times grants have been awarded to cities. There's a condemnation that is actually required, and it's not just a construction easement. It's a piece of property that somebody's beholden to. The federal government has gone out on a limb and granted this money, and then you guys know what happens. 100 angry people show up, and it's like, oh, we don't really want to do this. And then the federal government has to start their clock over, and somebody else who had a valid project, who was in the queue for competition, then doesn't have the money. And that city is not likely to get money again. So the reason the federal government requires this stuff is they want to know that you have intent, and that's what that says, that you have an intent to do this and consider condemnation if it's necessary. Thank goodness in this case it doesn't appear to be. But I just want to address this because we do try to, and I'm sorry if we misread here, if any of our staff misread the preference to have this not on the consent calendar, but it's not a big deal. You can take it off, and there's been, it looks like it's in the statewide system transportation improvement plan, the STIP program, and it's been in the city's transportation dialogue for several years. So we're sorry if we surprised anybody. I just want you to know it wasn't intentional if that happened. And
Thank you.
we'll try to maybe not use the consent calendar for anything in the future.
Okay.
And then you can put stuff on there.
All right.
If
Okay.
you want. We'll use it as a default, and then if you want to put things on your consent calendar, you can. We do try to use it, though, because we try to minimize the amount of time you have to spend in these meetings. And
Okay.
sometimes we make the wrong call. So,
Thank you, David.
yeah.
Commissioner Neely?
Question. We've completed phase 1 on McLaughlin. This is part of phase 2. These have been ongoing things. Phase 1, I think the planning on that started taking place about something like 14 years ago, and we finally completed it. I'm going to support this, and I understand this is not a point of negotiation with the property owner. I'm going to suggest that because I'll support it anyway, but that we have, if we don't have an urban renewal commission meeting scheduled for 2 weeks from the first Wednesday that we do so, we bring it back, even though it's not a negotiation thing, that Kristen Jones is able to talk to you a little bit about the process a little bit. And it's not negotiation, just to clarify what's involved there. As a courtesy.
That's fine. It puts us behind schedule on the project.
Does 2 weeks really affect
It really
you?
does. I mean, we wanted to start talking to her 3 weeks ago, and remember we wanted to have this on the first meeting in January, and we didn't have urban renewal. So we're kind of like trying to catch up. But I'm happy to do whatever the commission wants.
Oh, but does 2 weeks actually negatively impact you that much?
Well, my project manager isn't in this room, but she was trying to keep the project going. She was trying to get out there and start sending the letters to acquire this easement. In December, we said, oh, no, we have to pass this first. We didn't have a meeting in the beginning of January, so now we're at the end of January, or whatever the date is. So we're kind of about a month behind now, and these are strict schedules.
Do you feel far more confident and comfortable about what's been said here?
Yeah, I do. I guess the biggest thing I would like to say is just because we own so much property on that corridor that we really would love to be in the loop as much as possible, and especially because, you know, we're putting a significant investment ourselves in wanting to upgrade that area of Oregon City. And sometimes it feels like, because it's this little corner of Oregon City on the other side of the freeway, sometimes it feels like it doesn't get as much attention. And so I guess I'd just like to say, as much as possible, we would really love to be able to work together with the city on that.
But you don't feel uncomfortable with the state now?
I feel like the clarification, I think that the biggest thing is this makes it sound like there's an intent for an acquisition to happen, and that's different than an easement.
Yeah, what I handed out tonight is the map showing the easement, and that's exactly what is in your conditions of approval for your
right. So this to us
planning.
sounded like a new thing with the words acquisition and condemnation.
And that's
That sounded,
what we just have to use that language.
as long as that's all on the record tonight.
And some
that's
projects
fine.
we do have acquisition, but not on this one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, no, I just wanted to thank the parties for the clarifications and thank Kristen for being here tonight. It's been very helpful to have you here.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for, I know we had you wait through quite a bit, so thank you.
All right. Very good.
I move resolution number UR 1201.
Second.
Move seconded. Question? Hearing none. Vote.
Commissioner Mom?
Aye.
Commissioner Roth?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Yates?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Yes.
Commissioner Walters?
Yes.
Commissioner Edgar?
Yes.
And Chair Shaw.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
All right. We're going to move on to the minutes of December 7th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we need to vote on it?
Commissioner Mom?
Aye.
Commissioner Roth?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Yates?
I wasn't here, I'll abstain.
Okay. And Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Commissioner Walters?
Yes.
Commissioner Edgar?
Yes.
And Chair Shaw.
Yes. City manager's report, please.
I have nothing to report this evening,
Wow.
but we have a lot to talk about in executive session.
Okay, very good. You're still on, are you okay? Okay. Future agenda items?
The budget. What's the story on the budget, and what's happening with the budget process, and how do we get access to the information? When's the meeting, and what's happening with the urban renewal budget?
It's on the
process?
calendar.
Yeah, it's on the, what's available is on the calendar. We don't start the city budget process until after the city commission has their goal setting,
Okay.
which is coming up on January 21st, and then after that, we start our budget process.
And when is the meeting when is the budget meeting?
I believe they start in April, but,
Okay.
Have the
It'll be on the
date.
city website.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anything else for?
When is the agenda item for talking out the north end of Main Street, where Doug and I have been talking about? When is that coming onto our agenda?
It's on the
I have
calendar.
to pull it up. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't have access to my files here.
I thought it was going to be.
I believe it's in February.
Okay, can you maybe send out a little email to all of us tomorrow, Nancy, when you locate that, so I guess we're aware of it coming up or something, especially from Mr. Edgar here. Okay.
Okay, just so you know, the Urban Renewal Budget Committee meeting is April 24th.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Munn. All right, how we doing? Everybody okay?
No.
Oh, wait, one more.
Green.
Yes, got it.
So I sent the city staff the revised new agenda item process, and just wanted to make sure that that was going to get distributed.
That was distributed.
It was.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we
Out of
have
the loop.
that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All good?
Mhm.
Okay, we will adjourn and move into executive session.
You have to quote the statute, sir.
You got to quote the statute.
Quote the statute.
Did you get the script? I have the script.
Okay.
Recessing into.
All right. Pursuant to ORS 192-660, 2E, to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions.
Good job.